Today I'm talking to you about nature versus nurture, which is a debate that has been going on for hundreds of years about what influences us most and turns us into the people that we are today. The nature side of it is based on our genes that are passed down through generations, which alleles we get from both parents that combine to turn us into who we are. Whereas the nature side is based on how we're raised, the environments that we're in, the traumas that somebody may or may not go through growing up. There are empirists who are the extreme nurture side that believe in tabula rasa, which means that all children are born with a blank slate. So everything that they learn, whether it's speaking or moving, waving, smiling, everything that you learn is based on the things around you. So if a child has a parent that is smiley and happy and always laughing, that child is most likely going to grow up being smiling and laughing and a happy-go-lucky kid, based on if a parent is a little bit more stoic and not as open or laughy as other people can be, then the child is most likely going to grow up being a little bit more on the serious side. But something that counteracts that are studies that have been done on children that have been adopted. They study them for years and years, and it ends up turning out that these adopted children have so much more in common with their biological parents. The ways that they move their hands when they're talking, different ways that they dress, their style, things like that, that most people think come from how we're raised, when really it seems like it comes more from our genetics. There are 5 different approaches in psychology to the different types. There's a biological approach that focuses on our genetics, our hormonal and neurochemical explanations as to why people are the way that they are. There's this psychoanalysis approach, which really is a combination of both. It's based half on nature, Freud's theory of sex and aggression, and it's also based on the nurturing aspect of our social upbringing. There's cognitive psychology, which is how the theory that our mental structures are constantly changing based on the environment that we're in or that we put ourselves into. There's humanism, which is Maslow's theory that society influences our self-concept, the way that we feel about ourselves, and then putting ourselves into different situations. And then there's behaviorists that believe that we are the way that we are based entirely on our environment and the things that we are raised around. That's also not all that there is, though. It's not all based on genetics or different things. There are different illnesses and diseases that are polygenic, which means that it's not just one thing that you have that automatically makes you be someone that has depression. Using that as an example, if you have less than 500 of a certain amount of markers, then you are predisposed to have depression. Not necessarily that you're going to, you just have more of a chance than somebody that was born with more than 500 of those markers. So if somebody has those less than 500 and they have a significant childhood trauma, or sometimes it doesn't even have to be what other people would think of significant. If somebody is bullied a lot when they're younger, some people might think of that as just a rite of passage, but this one person, because of their genetics, will most likely end up developing depression or anxiety the older they get. Alcoholism is another polygenic disorder. you can have somebody that's predisposed to alcoholism, but if they are raised in an environment where there's no binge drinking or alcoholism shown, and they continue that pattern as they get older, they don't put themselves in situations where things like that happen, then it's less likely that they themselves will become alcoholics. But if you have somebody that's predisposed to this and they are raised in an environment where the people around them are continuously showing them that this is okay, they're continuously showing them that going out and binge drinking or drinking until you pass out is a normal thing, then that person will most likely end up also becoming an alcoholic. It's not an exact science. It's not anything that is definitely going to happen. They just are more likely to than somebody that isn't predisposed to alcoholism. There's also the study of psychopathology, which is what I agree with most, and that is that both of these things are intertwined, that it's the nature and nurture, not nature versus nurture, is what I really think that people should really be paying attention to. James Fallon was a neuroscientist that discovered that he had a brain of a psychopath. But he believes that the reason why he never developed more traits of a psychopath is because of the environment he was raised in. He was raised in a loving home, people that accepted him, that pushed for him, and so he never ended up developing those traits. And then there is the way that doctors treat these different illnesses and things. Again, with depression, doctors who prescribe medications lean more on the nature side. They think that it is a chemical imbalance that you have inside your head, that there's nothing you can do about except for take medications to balance everything out and give you a better life. But then there are also psychologists that practice behavioral therapy. So instead of giving medications or just throwing medicine at some people, they believe that you need to sit down and talk about it. You need to work through the childhood trauma that you had. You need to work through any deep-seated emotions that you have that's making you depressed. I don't necessarily think that either one is best for everybody. I think every single person has a different way of thinking about things and being comfortable with things. There are people that have depression and nothing significant happened in their life to make them this way. It is just the way that they are. And medication really helps people like that. And then there are people who have gone through some very traumatic things in their life that make them have depression, and sitting down and talking to somebody and opening up and having a professional to work through the issues with really helps them, and they never need medication. They work through their issues and they're better for it. After everything that I have researched and learned in this project, I fully believe that everybody should be open and honest about diseases and illnesses that run in families. It can be a scary, embarrassing thing to talk about sometimes, but if you know that something like this runs in your family, then you know the different precursors to look out for. If you have a child, or even you yourself, you start noticing these precursors, you know that there's something that you can do to get a handle on it before something gets out of hand, which is extremely important. We could bring down suicide rates and all different things if we could just be a little bit more open and realize that not everybody is the same. Everybody feels things differently, and we can just be a little bit more careful with the youth of today. Thank you very much.